Pam Bondi steps out of a restaurant and gets into a heated confrontation with protesters on the street. You won't believe how it ends. It was a balmy evening in downtown Tampa. The glow of the setting sun reflected off the windows of a bustling Italian restaurant where laughter and the soft clinking of glasses could be heard through the open windows. Pam Bondi had just finished a dinner meeting with a few close friends and colleagues. Dressed in a stylish beige dress, her presence remained elegant and confident despite the casual ambiance. As Pam stepped out onto the sidewalk, a gentle breeze swept her hair back. She took a moment to check her phone for messages, her expression relaxed and content. A few passers-by recognized her and offered polite nods or shy waves, to which she responded with a courteous smile. Just as she was about to make her way to the valet, a small group of young adults emerged from the opposite side of the street. At first, they seemed like just another cluster of evening strollers, but Pam noticed the purposeful way they moved towards her. One of them, a woman with bright pink hair and a megaphone strapped to her shoulder, caught Pam's eye. "Hey, isn't that Pam Bondi?" one of the young men muttered loud enough for Pam to hear. His tone wasn't friendly. The woman with the megaphone didn't hesitate. She raised her voice, now clearly addressing Pam. "Hey, are you Pam Bondi?" Pam turned, her expression still composed. "Yes, I am. Can I help you?" The woman scoffed. "Yeah, you can help us by explaining why you're okay with defending someone like Trump. You know, well, the guy who divided this whole country." A few more people started gathering around, curious about the unfolding scene. Pam remained calm, her eyes meeting the woman's without flinching. "Everyone's entitled to their opinion," Pam responded evenly. "But I believe in the policies I've supported, and I've always worked to protect our community." The man next to the woman crossed his arms, shaking his head. "Protect? You call supporting a racist agenda protection? You just sit in your office and make decisions that hurt people." A murmur of agreement rose from the small group, and more bystanders were starting to pay attention. Pam remained rooted to the spot, refusing to be intimidated. "I understand your concerns," Pam replied, keeping her tone respectful. "I'm more than willing to discuss them, but attacking me without context doesn't lead to understanding." The woman huffed, clearly not expecting such a calm response. "Understanding? You don't care about understanding. You just care about your career and your politics." Pam took a step forward, keeping her voice firm yet controlled. "My career has always been about serving this community. You may disagree with my methods, but my intentions have always been to make Florida safer and stronger." One of the onlookers, an older man holding a grocery bag, chimed in. "Miss, I may not agree with every politician, but yelling at her like this ain't gonna change anything." The woman glared at the man. "Maybe people like you don't care about real issues. That's why she gets away with it." Pam didn't waver, sensing the frustration behind the protesters' words. "I hear your anger," she said, addressing the group as a whole. "And I understand why some of you feel that way. Political decisions impact lives, and it's okay to feel passionate. But can we have this conversation without hostility? I'm here to listen, even if we don't see eye to eye." The young man looked at Pam with a mix of defiance and uncertainty. "You say you're listening, but nothing changes." Pam nodded thoughtfully. "Change doesn't happen overnight, and not every policy will make everyone happy, but I'm open to hearing better ideas. That's what leadership is about, adapting when necessary and always aiming to do what's right." The woman with the megaphone seemed momentarily caught off guard. She lowered her voice, almost hesitant. "You really think you're doing what's right, even when people are suffering?" Pam's expression softened. "I think doing what's right is complicated. I've made tough choices, and not all of them have been perfect. But I can promise you this. I've always made those choices with the intention of helping the community. If I've gotten it wrong, I'm willing to listen and learn." Before the conversation could continue, one of Pam's colleagues approached from the restaurant, concern etched on his face. "Everything all right, Pam?" Pam gave a slight nod. "Yes, just having a conversation." The woman with the megaphone glanced around, realizing that the moment of confrontation had not gone as expected. She looked at Pam with a mixture of frustration and grudging respect. "Maybe next time, come prepared to actually listen," the woman mumbled before turning away, her small group slowly dispersing. Pam watched them leave, her composure never faltering. She took a deep breath, glanced back at a small crowd still gathered, and offered a faint smile. I appreciate everyone's willingness to talk. That's how we move forward. The air outside the restaurant was thick with a palpable tension. Pam Bondi remained at the edge of the sidewalk, her posture unwavering as the small group of protesters lingered. The woman with the megaphone, still visibly frustrated, hesitated before speaking again, trying to rally the energy she had moments before. "You say you want to help the community?" the woman shouted, lifting the megaphone slightly, her voice now amplified. "But how can you claim that when you support policies that hurt minorities and divide families?" Pam took a deliberate step forward, keeping her voice calm but clear. "It's important to address the impact of policies directly, rather than generalize intentions. I support measures that I believe will make our state safer and our communities stronger. If there are unintended consequences, then we should work together to address them." A few bystanders nodded, appreciating her composed response. However, the young man from earlier was not convinced. He pointed a finger toward her. "You act like you care, but you're just another politician doing damage control. Do you even realize how many people have suffered because of your choices?" Pam didn't flinch. "I'm aware that leadership comes with difficult decisions, and not all outcomes are ideal. But I'm here to have a real conversation about solutions, not just argue." The crowd around them had grown, a mixture of supporters, skeptics, and curious onlookers. A woman holding a toddler on her hip spoke up. "Look, I don't agree with every politician, but she's standing here talking to you. That counts for something. Most wouldn't even stop." The woman with the megaphone scoffed. "Talking isn't enough. We need action. We need accountability. Words don't fix broken communities." Pam nodded, acknowledging the point. "You're right. Words aren't enough. But engagement is the first step. If we stop talking to each other, we lose the chance to build something better. I'm here because I'm willing to listen, and I want to understand your concerns. That's why I didn't walk away." The young man crossed his arms defensively. "Listening doesn't change anything if you don't act. You've defended policies that tear families apart." Pam kept her tone even, though her eyes reflected the seriousness of the conversation. "I've spent years working to protect this state, sometimes making hard choices that not everyone agrees with. I understand that policies can impact lives in unexpected ways. That's why feedback matters." The crowd murmured again, some in agreement, others remaining skeptical. One of Pam's colleagues approached, whispering, "We should probably go, Pam. This might escalate." Pam glanced at him but remained rooted in place. "Not yet," she replied firmly. "We owe it to people to hear them out." A tall man wearing a faded Veterans for Peace cap stepped forward. "Ma'am," he began, his voice rough but earnest, "I don't always agree with your politics. Heck, I didn't vote for you, but standing here listening to these folks, you're showing something most don't. Respect, that counts." The woman with the megaphone looked at the veteran with disbelief. "She's part of the problem, and how can you say that?" The man shrugged. "Because shouting at someone without hearing them out, that's part of the problem too. I served so we could have conversations, not just fights." Pam looked at the man, appreciation evident in her eyes. "Thank you for your service. Your willingness to stand up for dialogue means a lot." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. The young man with the megaphone looked less certain now, his grip on the device loosening. Another protester, a woman wearing a Justice for All t-shirt, spoke up hesitantly. "If you really want to help, why not hold a community meeting? Let us voice our issues directly and come up with solutions together." Pam smiled softly. "That's a great idea. I would welcome the opportunity to listen and discuss. If we organize something like that, will you join and share your perspectives?" The woman hesitated but then nodded. "If it's real and not just a PR move." "It will be real," Pam promised. "Accountability means showing up and being present, even when it's uncomfortable. That's why I'm here right now." The crowd seemed to relax slightly, the tension ebbing away like a receding tide. Some even began to clap, impressed by her willingness to stay and talk. The woman with the megaphone lowered it completely, looking both exasperated and unexpectedly thoughtful. "I still don't like your politics," she admitted, her voice quieter now. "But I didn't think you'd stand here and take this." Pam offered a small smile. "It's easy to walk away. It's harder to stay and talk. But that's what leadership should be about, facing challenges directly, even when it's tough. With the confrontation diffused, the protesters began to drift away, some still discussing among themselves, others looking back at Pam with a mix of curiosity and respect. Pam took a deep breath, knowing that the night had not gone how anyone expected. As she finally moved toward the valet, a few people approached to shake her hand, expressing appreciation for how she handled the situation. One young woman, no older than 20, whispered, "You didn't have to stay, but you did. That means something." Pam simply replied, "It always means something to listen." As the protesters began to disperse, Pam finally allowed herself a moment to breathe. The adrenaline from the unexpected confrontation was slowly fading, replaced by a mix of relief and contemplation. A few people who had stayed behind approached her, expressing quiet words of support and respect for her willingness to stay and address the issues head-on. One older gentleman wearing a plaid shirt and leaning on a cane nodded approvingly. "You know," he said with a gravelly voice, "most folks in your position wouldn't bother listening. It's good you stood your ground." Pam smiled softly. It's important to hear people out, even when it's uncomfortable. Sometimes that's the only way to find common ground. The restaurant manager, who had been cautiously watching from the doorway, approached Pam with a hesitant smile. "Are you all right?" he asked. That got pretty intense. Pam gave a reassuring nod. "I'm fine. Thank you for your concern." As the last few protesters left the area, a young woman with a notebook approached hesitantly. "Ms. Bondi," she began, "I'm a journalism student. I was here with some friends when the protest started. Can I ask you a question?" Pam nodded, inviting the young woman to speak. "Of course." The student hesitated before asking, "Why didn't you just leave when they started yelling? Most people in your position would have walked away." Pam's expression softened. "Because leadership isn't about walking away when things get hard. It's about facing challenges, even when they're uncomfortable. If I can listen and show respect, maybe it will encourage others to do the same." The student scribbled down notes, clearly processing the unexpected answer. Pam could see the glimmer of curiosity in her eyes, a spark that reminded her of why public service mattered. After a few more quiet exchanges, Pam finally made her way to the valet where her car was waiting. As she got into the passenger seat, her colleague, who had been nervously waiting nearby, sighed in relief. "That could have gone so much worse," he admitted. Pam glanced out the window as the car pulled away, watching the dimming lights of the restaurant fade into the night. "It could have," she agreed, "but sometimes just staying and listening is enough to change the direction of a conversation." As they drove through the quiet streets of Tampa, Pam couldn't help but reflect on the night. It wasn't just about defending her policies or proving a point. It was about reminding people that dialogue was still possible. The challenges weren't going away, but neither was her resolve to face them head on. Pam knew that not everyone would walk away convinced, but that wasn't the goal. Tonight was about showing up, standing firm, and demonstrating that respect could be maintained even when opinions clashed. As her phone vibrated with a message of support from a friend who had seen a clip online, she allowed herself a brief, tired smile. One conversation at a time, she thought. That's how change starts.